everyone! Welcome back to the Budget Workshop, the show where I take cheap, inexpensive materials, turn them into some really cool stuff. So far I've done a Pokemon for the first episode. Second episode I did an original sword design. Third episode, the last one here, I did a toy rocket ship. Now, keeping with the whole playing around and having fun theme, I figured I'd make something that might seem very familiar to everybody, or at least to a whole lot of people. I am going to make the Hylian shield, Link's shield from the Legend of Zelda series, or his really cool shield anyways. There's a little cheap wooden one too, but that's not as much fun. What I'm going to do with this one here, now of course the easiest way to do it would be to take a large single sheet of wood and cut it to the shape you need and add the designs and all that. Well, as you can see, my bandsaw has a clearance of about a foot, which is not going to make for a very big shield if I did that. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to try something old-fashioned, kind of like they did with when they made barrels and that back in the day. I'm actually going to take several of these pieces of wood, and this is of course my good old favorite. This is poplar. This one here is about, now it says 1 inch on the label, but I measured it's actually about 3/4 of an inch thick, so it's a little thicker than it really needs to be. You're probably perfectly fine dealing with a 1/2 inch thick, or if you really want to chance it, you could do 1/4 inch, but that's not going to make for a very sturdy shield. What I'm going to do here is take several of these, put them side by side, and then we're going to put a banding on the back that'll hold it all into place. And then at the front, since this is nice and squared off, there might be some seams, but there won't be any gaps. And this is where I'm going to put all the paint and the different design elements on here. All the different little fancy designs here. This ring around the outside is actually going to be a separate piece, probably about a 1/4 inch thick, that I'm going to actually cut out separately, attached to the outside of everything. We got the little Triforce symbol here in the middle. These are going to be separate little triangle pieces that I'm going to put on there. And these little deals here, I honestly don't know what they are. If you're a fan of the series, maybe you can help me out with that. But these little pieces here, of course on the actual shield they're metal, but you know, everything here is going to be wood. The only metal might be the screws holding things into place when I get done. But these are also going to be cut out since these are 3-dimensional, and they're going to get stuck in their appropriate place. Now this is, not sure what the actual bird name is in this Zelda series. I just call it a phoenix. It's probably not. But, no, listen to the plane go by overhead. What I'm going to do with this, though, instead of cutting all this out and making a 3-dimensional shape, all the artwork I've seen, it's been just a flat painted-on design. So I see no reason to make things more complicated. I'm just going to go ahead and do that myself and just make it a nice flat painted-on bird design on there. When I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and put the leather strap and the handle on here. Now, because Link is left-handed, the shield's going to go on the right arm. So I'm going to have it set up where I can hold it like that. You know, and get that out of the way. So I can hold it on like this. So we'll have the strap in here and have the little handle on this part and just pick it up. And this is going to be a full-size shield. This is not going to be a little mock-up. I mean, I could have done a little miniature about the size of this thing, and it would look really nice hanging on the wall or sitting on the desk, but figured if I'm going to do this, might as well go big. Literally. I'm actually going to do a full-sized shield. Now, I found conflicting measurements on the actual size of the thing, anywhere from about 28 inches high all the way up to 32 inches, so I went somewhere in the middle. This is going to be a little over 30 inches. What I have here is I took this design, this actual exact same drawing here, and I blew this up using the grid pattern. And that's real easy. You just start off on the original and do a 1/4 inch square. On the big one, you do a 3/4 inch square. And when you copy the details over, you've got something that's exactly 3 times the size of the original picture. And in this case, that's about perfect. That makes it just a little over 30 inches long. And this here, I don't know how much this design shows up, but this is basically the full size of the shield. The bottom of it is sitting on the table. The top of the shield comes to right here. So it's pretty big. And it is all the way out to here, which is why this extra piece of paper's on here. It was wider than the paper I picked. But it goes all the way out this far. So this is going to be a nice big shield. Now what I'm going to do is temporarily going to take these pieces of poplar, I'm going to tape them together so that they're a nice solid piece. Draw this design on here, or maybe even just mask it off and paint it on. And then once I'm done with that, I'll pop the pieces off the tape and cut them out individually on the bandsaw. And once that's done, they'll be put back together, sanded on the sander, and then I'll go through final assembly and paint and all that. But I'm going to show you, I'm getting way ahead of myself and basically telling you how I'm going to finish the thing. But I'm going to go ahead and get started on this. I'm going to go ahead and get these cut out and taped off and ready to go on that. And I'll be back with you guys once that's ready to go. As you can see, I've gone ahead and I've cut the boards down. Got them all lined up. This is more or less how they need to be to do the shield properly. So what we do next is we go ahead and we take the drawing. Now I went and cut the big main drawing out so it's the size and shape of the shield. And we get this lined up on here. Now, ignore the wind there. Now what I'm going to do next actually is, well, first off we need to move this just a bit. Okay. Now what I'm going to do next actually is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tape this down. And I'm going to trace along the outside edge of this drawing so that we get the pattern of the shield that we need on the wood itself. Now I would try to do a transfer like I did with the hone edge, but honestly that doesn't seem to work out too well most of the time. So I'm going to go ahead and do like I said, I'm going to trace around the outside of this. I'm going to set this aside. Do not throw this away because you're going to need this to do the all the different little details that are on the shield. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead, get that taped down, get that drawn, and I will get the shield rough cut out, and I'll be back with you after I get that done, and we'll go from there adding the details. Well, as you can see, the shield's all cut out. It's ready to go. This is our basic shape. It's cut, it's sanded. The next step, since this is made out of multiple pieces instead of just one big sheet of wood, is I'm going to put some braces in here so this holds together better. I wouldn't suggest trying to just glue it, especially with wood this thick, because it really will just fall apart on you. But what we do is we put our braces. I'm going to put this one here. Of course, you know, if you have metal braces, you don't need to put as many because it'll be a lot sturdier. But I'm going to stick with just wood right now, try to keep the cost down a little bit. But we'll put that one there. I'm going to put another one here. This obviously still needs to be trimmed down a bit. Basically put that one there. Then we take two smaller ones for a little additional bracing. One below that one. One right here in the middle. Now, of course, if you want to, you could probably also put one more up top here. I may do that. Haven't decided yet. But basically, once you get these trimmed, turn around and just take your simple, ordinary little wood screws and screw them down in. Again, you don't want to just glue them. For something this big, that really won't work too well. If you want to, though, you can put glue in here for additional support. That's not a bad idea. But once this is done, like I said, we're going to go ahead and get this screwed into place. Got to put this in a spot where all the pieces are in place. There we go. And basically, you can put as many screws as you want in here, but you need to have at least one for each slat of wood that you've got here. It would probably work a little better if you had two. But, you know, one will work. It's just not going to be quite as sturdy. As you can see, we've gone ahead and we've got all these braces on here. This is ready to go. This one did go in a little uneven. Important lesson to note, before you put these screws in, it's a good idea to drill holes first. Not all the way down, but at least part way to give it a starter. Because I didn't here, and that's what happened. It split the wood a little bit. But if you do these starter holes, the holes are already in the wood. It'll go straight in, nice and even. No problem. But anyways, here's our shield with the bracings on the back. Pick this up. You can see here. There we are. There's our front. So, as I said here, we've got this finished surface. We've got this little screw sticking out. No big deal because we're going to put the border around it. The next step is going to be to go ahead and put primer on this. And as I've said before, you don't really need to use primer on wood, but I'm going to go ahead and do that anyways. I just like the way it turns out, that nice smooth finish. And after the primer, I'm most likely going to put a layer of the paint on here. Now the main surface of this, as you can see in this little drawing here, is this big blue field that's got to go down. That's got to be down first before I do the other stuff. I could try to do it after I put these metal borders on, but I'm not going to do that because that's a whole lot of masking and that's more hassle than it's really worth. We can go ahead and paint this whole surface because we're not gluing the wood down this time. We're actually using screws to hold it in place, so it doesn't really matter if there's paint there. But I'm going to go ahead and primer it up like I said, try to put the blue down, and we'll see how that looks. As you can see here, we've got our shield all painted up, a nice royal blue color. It's a little darker than what most of the illustrations show, but it's pretty close. I'm going to stick with this. I think it looks good. The next step is going to be to add all the little accessories. Now I went ahead and kind of jumped the gun a bit and got these all cut out and painted, ready to put on here. See, they're a nice bright silver. You know, the paint's a little spotty, but yeah, I can deal with that. Now, the important thing is to get these matched up to the right side. Like, for instance, you do that, it doesn't really work too well, but if you tweak this just a little, you get that there, and we get, there's the other piece, I think. Nope. See, here's part of the fun. There we are. And this goes up here. This goes right there. Now it is a little uneven and I'm probably going to have to patch it a little. But this is the beginnings of our shield being assembled. Now, if it's a little off, it's okay. Remember, this whole thing's made out of wood. You can always go back, take your sander, smooth things down a bit. Just be really careful not to get into this blue field, because otherwise you're going to have to take it all apart and repaint that. But do that there. Put this on here, like so. Put this here, like so. And this here, like so. And you know, of course, when you put these all together, you're going to be doing them one at a time, not the whole thing like this. I'm just showing you a preliminary assembly of everything. I'm going to do that there. And then get these little guys go up in here. Like that. And we put our Triforce together right in the middle of that. Like so. Oh, that's wrong side. There we go. Like that. And so we got the beginnings of a pretty good looking little shield here. Now when this is done, I'm also going to go in and hand paint a little Firebird on here. But for now, the next step I'm going to be doing is I'm actually going to be attaching all these to it. And once that's done, I may have to go in a few spots here and there, patch it with a little bit of putty and paint back over that. But next time you see this, this border will be on here. We'll have this on there. And we'll go to adding on the handle. I'm actually going to do the bird last. This is going to be hand painted. And it's going to be fairly quick actually, but I want to do that last just for a minimum chance of getting it messed up. As it is, you know, I would have waited to paint the silver, but it would really be a pain to try and paint these after they're put on. So I went ahead and painted them ahead of time. But in any case, as I said, I'm going to go ahead next and assemble all this. And you'll see it again with this already on here. And we're going to get to work on the handle and the arm strap to hold the shield in place. Now, as you can see, gone ahead and got all this stuff glued on here. You know, a couple spots are a little rough. Like, you know, and here it's a little uneven. Here we got a few gaps in that. Don't worry about that. We're not finished yet. What I'm going to end up doing here is I'm going to smooth down these edges to make sure everything's nice and even. I'm also going to go in and take a little bit of that wood putty that I've used in previous videos and fill in these little gaps, smooth them down, do a little touch-up paint. So this will all look like one nice solid piece of metal going around the thing. And after I'm done with all that, the next step is going to be painting that bird on the front. Now there are multiple ways you can do this. Of course you can mask it off, paint it that way. The problem with that is because the bird is such a wide area right here in the middle of this blue field, you're going to have to mask this entire shield off in order to avoid the paint from going over. And, you know, if you use spray paint, that's going to be a mess. It's going to be a bit of a pain. I would actually recommend not using spray paint to do this part. I mean, you can if you're confident and you can get enough masking material on there, and it may actually look the best when you're done. But what I'm going to end up doing actually is using acrylic paint, or, you know, your typical craft paint. Let's see if I got a jar of it around here somewhere. Yep, there we go. You know, just something simple like this. You know, of course, not this color. It's going to be a nice bright red. But it's just a simple little paint here. You can get these for like $1 at most craft stores. And, you know, it's such a big thing, it's probably going to take about half of one of these bottles to paint this. But what I'm going to do, instead of masking this whole area off, which would take forever, what I'm going to do is actually use the original drawing. This right here is the original drawing that I used to lay everything out on the wood. And as you can see, there's a bunch of spots cut out of it. And that's how I actually got my patterns for the Triforce and these little things. I'm honestly not sure what these are, but that's how I got all the little pieces. They were actually all cut out of the original drawing. This is what's left of it. What I'm going to do instead is did a little quirk when I put it together. I kind of put it together backwards, so I got to flip this upside down. But what I'm going to do instead is take this, make sure this is all lined up like this. I'm actually going to tape this down so that it doesn't move, and then just take and very gently brush over the openings. You want to be careful because this is not masking. A lot of these spots are going to be loose like this, and you really can't tape these down because the tape will go over it and make a bit of a mess. I mean, you can try a double-sided tape and put that on here, but you got to be careful you don't rip off your blue paint. But in any case, however you manage to get this secured, you lay this down nice and flat. Make sure there's no bubbles like right here. It's bunched up. You want to get that fixed and make sure everything fits perfectly. Oh, excuse me. Make sure everything fits perfectly. And once you've done that, you can take, you can do a brush, which is actually really nice, even strokes like this. Or you can do something I've done in the past, and they have these little sponge applicators, which I really should have brought one in here if I was going to talk about it, but it's these little, you know, it's like a little stick with a sponge on the end of it, a little wedge-shaped sponge, and what you do is you pour your paint in the middle here, and use the sponge and just sort of pull it down, spread it out and all that. Again, you want to be careful however, you know, you do this, whatever method you use, because you don't want the paint to get up underneath here. Because acrylic paint is water soluble and it can be rinsed off, but you have to get it when it's still wet. Once it's dry, the only way to really get it off of there without making a mess is to scrape it off. And if you scrape it off, you're going to ruin your blue that you've already got on here. So you want to be really careful to make sure none of this paint gets underneath here and ruins the look of it. And one other tip is if you're going to cut out this pattern like this, you don't want to cut this out on the shield. Because now I did just cut this out with a regular X-Acto knife, same thing with all these other parts. But the problem with doing this on the shield is if you use that X-Acto knife, you're going to gouge the surface. And if you don't get it absolutely perfect, that's going to ruin the shield. And you'd have to sit there and patch in the little gaps, just like I'd have to do here. But in any case, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get this painted. I'll be back with you after that's painted, and I've got all these fixed. I'm going to go ahead and do that all in one step. I'm going to fix these edges and paint the bird on. Once this is done, the only thing really left to do is to add the handle to the back. I'll show you how to add that handle in the next step, But for now, I'm going to go ahead and get the bird painted and get all these little edges touched up. And I'll see you guys when I get done with that. Now what we have here is our fully painted shield. You can see there I got the bird on it. Now, of course, I'm not the best painter in the world. The bird's a little crooked, a little rough in spots, but overall it looks pretty good. It'll work as a nice little display piece or costume accessory or something. But that for now means that the front is finished at the moment. There are going to be some little touches I'm going to add to it. Like in the actual original drawing, it has these little rivets and these, well, here, here, and here. What I did is I went out and found these little plugs. You get these any place that sells woodworking products. These are meant to actually plug up holes or just as decorative pieces. I went ahead and I painted them silver to match the shield, and they're going to end up being glued on here like that. Now, for now, I'm going to leave these off because when I flip the shield over to attach the handle and all that, these will get all scuffed up. So I'm going to leave those off right now so we get a nice flat surface to work with. And we'll flip that shield over. Now to keep a minimum amount of scuffing and scraping to it, what I'm going to do is use our old familiar paint stands. These are the same ones I've shown in past videos here. Yeah, I used these for, you sit an item on this and paint it up so it doesn't get stuck to the table. But we just put them in the right spots so that it balances properly. That's a little crooked. Alright, one there, and right about there. That holds up pretty good. Patch of glue to get rid of. Alright, now once that's on there, it's about time to actually start adding the handle and the arm strap. Now for the handle, I went ahead and got started on this, jumped the gun a little, as usual. All this is I went and took, this is actually a cabinet handle. You can get this at any hardware store, any place you do cabinet work, kitchen work, that kind of thing. It's just a simple little wooden cabinet handle. I got it painted up silver to match the look of the rest of the shield. And went ahead and screwed it onto this piece of wood. Now you're probably going to want to do what I didn't do. And you're going to want, when you screw this on here, to make sure these screws are flat, so that'll go in nice and flush. I kind of screwed myself over a little bit and made this a little more difficult than need be. With these rounded screw heads, if this is all you've got to work with, what you want to do is drill a very shallow pair of holes in this part of the wood. You know, wherever you're going to put your handle, like say I put it there, you want to put your shallow hole like right there, so that it all matches up. And that way, when you have that little shallow hole, you know, like no more than maybe 1/4 of an inch deep at most, these little screw heads will set right down in those holes. It'll provide you with a little extra foundation, plus it'll keep it so that the handle is flush with the back of the board. Otherwise, it's going to sit up like this, and it's actually going to be really difficult to get that to sit without cracking the wood base plate. But anyways, once you get that done, go ahead and like before here, you drill your starter holes for the screws. I'm going to apply a little glue on here, actually, for a little added foundation. But once that's done, you just do a little bit of glue here. You know, not enough where it squirts out, just enough to add a little extra adhesive to it. And once those starter holes are set for those, you set those in, press it down real good so the glue's in. And then what I'll end up doing is I'll take a quartet of screws, 4 screws, and we're going to actually screw it down here, 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 and here. So it's really solid, really strong. And once that's done, I'm going to end up putting an arm strap on here, because you're going to want this to loop through, so it goes like this. You want your hand to be able to grip that comfortably, and a strap right here to hold the arm in place, so that way you're not picking it up completely by the handle. But I'm going to go ahead and get started on that. I'll be back once that's done, and we will most likely be seeing the finished product once I'm done. We finally have a finished product to show you, or I should say I do. But before I show you the whole thing, I want to show you the back part, which was the last part that I worked on. And here we have the setup. We've got our bracing pieces that keep all the different slats of wood together, keep them from, crumbling, falling apart, all that fun stuff. Here we have our handle. This is both glued and screwed in place, so that's really solid, as you can see there. Here we have our strap. This is for the arm to go through, like that. This is actually made out of real leather. I got this at a hobby shop. They actually sell scraps of leather for like $3-4 at the hobby shop. You just cut that to the right size. Got another little piece of wood in here that I screwed and glued down. I also glued the leather to the wood before I screwed it down, so that's really solid right now. Now, because in the video games Link is left-handed, the shield goes on his right arm, so that way he can use his sword with his left hand. So I did the same thing with this shield. And actually just go right ahead, feed the arm through there, grip it like that, and this holds it in place over your forearm right here. This is what you grab onto. Now, if I ever do this again, I'm probably going to make this handle bigger because this is kind of a tight fit. But, it works pretty good. And, the point is, it's actually a functional shield. It's solid wood. This might actually stop an arrow. Maybe several. In any case, the money shot. I'll show you the finished product. There is the front of our shield. Now, of course, as most of the projects are, leaves a little room for improvement here and there. There's a few spots that aren't quite perfect. Some of the paint's a little rough in spots. Like right there's a little piece of paper from the masking that got left over. But, again, I'm not showing you how to make these picture-perfect, movie-quality replicas. Of course, you're more than welcome to improve on what I'm showing, and you could probably end up doing a better job than I can. I'm just working with what I have here, fairly inexpensive tools, inexpensive materials. But in any case, as I said, this is our Hylian shield. This is kind of a mishmash. There's a different version of a Hylian shield for pretty much every Zelda game. And this is kind of a mixture of them. I just kind of put it together, made something that I thought looked pretty good. But we got our little rivets or decorative bolts. I'm not quite sure what they're supposed to be. Some of the versions actually have those bolts down here too, but I thought it looked better having this triangular cutouts instead. Same thing up here. And I don't know what these are, but they're nice little flourished kind of snake-like pieces. We have our Triforce of Power here, and we have our bird design on there. And I may actually in the future, if I do another one of these at some point, I'm going to try to make it solid wood, and I may actually try to make this bird elevated, kind of like the Triforce is here, to see how that looks. But in any case, we have our finished shield. Go ahead and put that right on my arm like that, see? It's nice and big. That would block a lot. And holds up, no problem. It's nice and sturdy. But this is actually going to end up on display at my house. I like it a lot, actually. And it's just a bonus that it's a functional shield, I would have just made the front end and hung it up, but I figured might as well make it complete, This is, honestly, at least so far, the most complicated build I have ever done. This took a lot of work, a lot of man hours, as you can tell by the delay in the videos. It took, probably about a month, actually, to make this thing, with especially considering I could only do it on my days off. I do work a full-time job and had to do this kind of in between. But this is amazing what you can do on the weekend in a couple hours each weekday, huh? In any case, thank you for watching. If you liked this, if you want to see more, go ahead and like and subscribe down below the video down here somewhere. If you have any suggestions as to what you'd like to see in the future, go ahead and post that down here. I also have a Twitter that I'll have that down below in the description as well. If you're wondering why the name's a little off, it's because it was originally set up for something else and that fell through. But I figured I already had the Twitter account, might as well use it. No sense making up a brand new one. I'd have to have a whole new email address for that. American way, lazy. Yeah. But in any case, again, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys hopefully in another week or two with the next project. Bye-bye.